Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Real Work Podcast. I am Jennifer Tarl, and this is
Rob Pokolsky.
So we are here today to talk about the real work of a family vacation and a little bit of a family vacation, literally and figuratively off the beaten path. We just returned from two national parks from California, Joshua Tree and Death Valley National Parks. We had an amazing trip, and a lot of my students, since I've returned, have been asking me, why did you go there? What did you do? And should I go? So we're here to just talk about all the things related to our trip today. And I have some pictures to show you, and we're just going to have like a little conversation. So I'm going to start it off by saying 2 enthusiastic thumbs up about the vacation. Rob, do you have anything to add before we jump in?
No, this was definitely a must-do, in my opinion, if you are interested in national parks at all. And we'll tell you the differences between the two national parks, what worked for us, and what we might do a little bit differently. But definitely, I agree, 2 enthusiastic thumbs up.
Okay, so how we got there is I love a national park. Rob and I have been very fortunate to have visited many national parks, and we have taken our daughter on many vacations to these parks as well. So Joshua Tree and Death Valley were on our radar, but they are not easy to get to. And so Rob was in California for work. My daughter had spring break. And so we were like, hey, let's figure this out and let's do it. So we flew into LAX. And from LA, we drove to Joshua Tree. So Rob, how long of a drive do you think that was the first day? We actually did stop in Palm Springs on the way. So what was that, 3 hours?
Yeah, it probably took somewhere between 3 and 4 hours, but we did stop along the way quite a bit.
Yeah.
We did take in the sights of Palm Springs a bit. And so we did have breaks in there, but relatively easy drive. Once you got out of the LA traffic, a relatively easy drive.
Yeah, relatively easy drive. I would say we did stop in Palm Springs at the Tram, which was supposed to be like a little quick trip to stretch our legs. Let's just say, unless you have a whole day to commit to it and you can get there very early, I would skip it just because of the lines. The lines were unbelievably long, and it was going to take us 3 hours just to wait to get on the tram. And we were there the moment it opened, right at 10 a.m. So just keep that in mind if that's on your list. So we did just walk around Palm Springs a little bit, got a coffee, which is one of the things I love to do, and then got back on the road. Okay, so we made our way to Joshua Tree. If you've never done a national park vacation, they are kind of in the middle of nowhere. When I say that, there's still gas stations, all of the things along the way. So we got to Joshua Tree, and there is a town that you stop in called Joshua Tree. So we stopped there. And the first thing that we always do when we go to a national park is stop at the visitor center. So Rob, what did you think about the visitor center?
We're usually used to a visitor center being pretty grand when you come to these big national parks. I will tell you this one, while it was functional, had a great ranger that was there to answer your questions. It was not gigantic by any stretch of the imagination that we were expecting for such things. So definitely a smaller visitor center than we were expecting, but we did have a great ranger there who was there to answer any questions, help you plan out your trip, and also will let you know about any current weather conditions or anything that's closed. So the ranger was very helpful, but the actual physical facility itself was not the sheer size that we're used to for such a major national park.
Yeah. And my daughter and I love a gift shop. Rob is not as much into the gift shop. The gift shop was underwhelming. Of course, we did get a few things, but it was not as grand as some of the gift shops that we've been to. There are 3 entrances to Joshua Tree National Park. There is one from the south, one from the north, and the main entrance is the entrance from the east. And so then the ranger station was very, very busy at that entrance, and the visitor center was very, very busy. And keep in mind, this was I think they said the busiest weekend of the year, correct, Rob?
Yeah. They did tell us this was the busiest weekend that they would have for the year. And we thought we would see just like massive crowds. And the parks are so big that it's not obvious, except if you're trying to come in at the same time everybody else is coming in. Other than that, the crowds really were not a factor. And we came in earlier than everybody else, so it really was not a big factor for us.
Yeah, we also did enter through the north entrance. And just a few tips: if you've never been to a national park, you can buy your pass at any visitor center. And so we did buy our pass, so we were ready. We got to the entrance, what was it, about 6:30, 7 o'clock, somewhere in there, probably 7 o'clock, because we did have breakfast at the hotel. I'll talk about the hotel in a minute. And we went right in. There was no line, no waiting. In fact, the rangers weren't even there to check our entrance fee at that point, but you do want to get your pass. We typically get the annual pass, which is good for any national park in the entire country. So it's well worth it. Rob, why don't you talk a little bit about where we stayed? Because this is a little bit different in terms of national parks that we visited, and where you could stay.
Right. We ended up staying not inside Joshua Tree National Park itself, but just on the outside of it.
I don't think there's any hotels in Joshua Tree, are there?
I didn't see any in Joshua Tree.
Yeah, I didn't see any either. Okay,
they do have them in Death Valley, but not in Joshua Tree that I could see. So we stayed just outside the park, and it was very easy to get to. And for us and our purposes, again, we're traveling with a 12-year-old, that it worked very well for us to have a base that's very close to the entrance. And so you can go back during the heat of the day, you can actually go back to the hotel if you want. And so that worked very well. We don't need anything grand. We didn't have the most grand accommodations, but they were very good for us. Yeah.
We stayed at a Marriott. It was amazing. You can check out my Plannin website. That's PLANNIN. I'm starting to put everything in there just because I've had so many questions from so many people that's just a great place to kind of keep everything all in one place. I am not a travel blogger, neither is Rob, but we do put our honest opinions in there, and we do love, what was the brand of the Marriott that we stayed at? I can't remember.
This one was a Fairfield Inn that we stayed at.
Okay, so you do get free breakfast, which is key when you are traveling with a family. And so that was great. We got some coffee, a couple of pro tips. Make sure you take a water bottle. I did forget my coffee mug, and I was disappointed because then you can take your free coffee with you from the hotel, because there were no services in the park. There's no food in Joshua Tree. It's different for every national park. So it would have been nice to have my morning coffee. Again, the hotel was great. Also, if you're traveling with a family, plenty of, I'm going to call them basic restaurants, fast food restaurants, and even a few grocery stores. So I always like to stop at the grocery store, have some snacks, have some drinks. Rob, at the beginning of the trip, got us a case of water, which we kept in the car because you're in the middle of the desert. And that was great. I just kind of like to have that stuff, and just in case, even though you're close to civilization, it just makes me feel better having all of those things. Okay, so let's take a quick look at Joshua Tree. So this is pretty standard when you get to a national park. There is always the welcome sign. We always stop to get a photo. This one we took on the hood of the car. It's not our best, but we did photo document, so that always makes me happy. Usually there are other people there taking pictures, and people are so kind, they'll take a picture for you. Rob, is there anything else you want to add about entrances to the national parks, or what you should do before you go in?
My suggestion is you want that family picture with the sign in the background, just get it taken care of. It's never easier than right now. Get it done. You'll be tired at the end of the day. There'll be people there. Just take that picture right away. Just get it done.
Yeah. Okay. Rob is wise. Follow his recommendation. There have been many times where I'm like, we're going to stop at the end of the day. And Rob is always like, no, 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 we're going to stop right now. Even if there are other people there, we are going to wait. It is always the best recommendation because you are exhausted at the end of the day because you're just walking around and doing all of the fun things. Okay. National parks are great. I always feel very, very safe in a national park. But you do need to keep in mind that you are in nature. So at the visitor center, you will see these signs that say, do not die today. The desert can be deadly. So again, you're a smart person. Just be smart, have water with you, stay on the trails. And if it's really hot in the middle of the day, think about just taking a break. And that gets back to what you said, Rob, which is make sure that you go back in the middle of the day and take a break. Anything else that people need to bring to a national park that you recommend, Rob?
Well, for this one in particular, you're in the desert. So water means a lot.
Yeah.
Secondly is make sure you've got your tank filled up with gas if you can. So we would stop even when we had half a tank just to fill it up and make sure as much as we can we're at a full tank of gas. So in the desert, definitely the water. You want a wide brim hat if you can. For somebody fair skinned like myself, it's extremely important to be able to have the sun protection, sunscreen when you're there. Just anticipate that the sun's going to be more intense than you think.
Yeah. I want to say as a person who tans quickly and very, very well, I also need to wear sunscreen and a hat because I've gotten actual sunburn in my life being in deserts. So Rob warned me, I didn't listen. So maybe this will help someone to know. Cover your ears. Like your ears are what get burnt when you're out there. Like a baseball hat most of the time doesn't cut it. If you're out for any extended period of time, you want to have a wide brimmed hat. And so let's show my fit here. I loved all of the flowers in the desert. We were there sort of at the end of the season where everything is blooming and it was absolutely gorgeous, but you do need sunglasses. I bought cheapo ones, a 3-pack of polarized sunglasses from Amazon, took all 3 pair. We needed them because we did lose some sunglasses. Wide brim hat. I love my Tilly. She's been everywhere with me. And then just dress in layers. It's very cool in the morning, but then by the afternoon, we were really, really hot. But I felt like we were really prepared in terms of clothes and everything. And then what do you do in a national park? Rob, what do you do in a national park? I get this question over and over. So like, what do you do?
So this is very different. This is when you go to a national park, if you're used to going to an amusement park or something where it's very structured and you get moved from one ride to the next, you know exactly what you're going to do because it's what everybody else has done.
Yeah.
When you go to a national park, it's a little bit more unstructured.
Yeah.
So you kind of go where you want to go. And usually you do hiking, sightseeing, seeing things that you like. So it is a different feel. You make it up as you go along. Like you might have some key things you want to see because they're usually the most popular things to see. But then you adjust from there. So our 12-year-old will see some boulders she wanted to climb on. So we're climbing on boulders. That's what we're doing. We see a big sign that says turtle crossing. We're going to go look for turtles is what we're going to do. We didn't have that planned, but that's what you're going to do. So you kind of have a loose plan, but this is definitely more unstructured and going where kind of everything takes you versus extremely structured that you go from one thing to the next. So you just have to know that going in. And it's a different kind of vacation. And it has more discussion with everybody of what you want to do, given what you're experiencing what nature is like. So it's a very different kind of vacation where you talk a lot because it's not obvious where to go next. So you have to discuss it as a family group of what you want to do next. And so it is definitely a very different than an extremely structured vacation.
Yeah. And on that, you really do unplug because you do have some cell service in national parks, but it is spotty. At least in Joshua Tree, you do get cell service in most locations, but it's almost impossible to search the web for anything. So the national park does have an app. You can download physical maps. And so, when people ask me, how do you keep your kids off of their phones? It's impossible. Like there is just no way to use a phone. And so that's really, really good. On that unstructured nature of things, we usually stop at the ranger station, ask them what are the big things to see. I also use AI, which is a great tool to plan vacations now. What are the things that we should see? Here's what we like to do. And I also want to tell people, if you've never been on a hike, it's just a walk. So basically you go to the national parks and you go on a walk. I had never been to a national park until I met Rob. So I'm forever grateful to him for this because now it is like my favorite thing to do. But basically that's what you do. A hike is a walk. So don't overthink it. Most of the hikes are really accessible. You see so many people in national parks in wheelchairs. We saw many, many people on this trip. This is a great trip, Joshua Tree and Death Valley. A lot of the popular hikes are flat, gravel, or paved. And it's really, really accessible. So let's look at a few more pictures here. Here's our first hike of the day. Rob, where were we here?
So this was in Joshua Tree, and I believe this was near Skull Rock, which was well named because it looks like a skull. So I believe that is where we were.
Yeah, there's Skull Rock right there. See the face? It kind of like we're at the nose of it. And then kind of on what you were saying, Rob, is that what happens then is we stopped here to see Skull Rock. And then we were like, oh, there are these other hikes that are like a mile. And they're usually a loop. So we said, we're going to do this loop trail. So basically you start in one spot and you end in that spot. And you just follow the signs. And then we came upon, Rob, tell us about this.
So there's a place called Face Rock.
Yes.
Which you can obviously see that there's a face. Or if you can interpret it in certain ways, you can even see multiple faces, depending on how you see it. So again, not something we had planned, but just something we made up on the fly because we liked it. We liked going around there. And then we said, all right, as a group, well, let's do this now. Yeah. So it wasn't exactly part of the plan. It was unstructured, but we said, let's do it. Let's see how we can go there. Let's see how it works. And we really enjoyed that hike.
Yeah, it was a great hike. We saw all of my cactus, which we got a lot of pictures of those. And then we just went for a drive. So the roads in the national parks are typically amazing, but do keep in mind you are in nature. And so there were several things at Joshua Tree that were closed because of flooding, because they had rain over the winter. So we drove along and we stopped at this beautiful overpass and you could see the entire valley. And then people in the national parks are so nice. This random man came up to us and he was like, would you like me to take a picture? We were on a hike. Again, keep in mind, this is the busiest season in the national park, the busiest weekend. We were the only people except for this other man on this trail. And look at this beautiful job that he did. If you get our Christmas card, maybe this will be our picture this year. Like that is how amazing it is. So Joshua Tree is known for the trees, and these are the Joshua trees. You can see them behind us. Rob, why don't you tell us a little bit about the trees that we learned?
And again, this is another example of you don't have much internet access. You can't do that, but you talk amongst yourselves while you're doing this. So in talking about these, you see a lot of these trees, and they look like something out of a Dr. Seuss children's creative art because they're just beautiful looking.
Mhm.
They're not actually trees, is what we learned when we were there, that they're actually part of a plant versus a tree. But they're all over the place. They are there because of the unique climate that is there. And you can do a bunch of research just on why are they shaped like they are. So again, something that's unstructured, we would never even think about, but we end up spending a lot of time trying to go to the visitor centers, trying to figure out, asking people, why do they look like this? And so that's what you end up doing. So it really blew us away how many there were of the Joshua trees, because it's something you don't see any other place that we've gone to. So it's very unique. But that's the big thing. Joshua trees are not trees. So that was a big thing that we learned. They're named Joshua because some of the early settlers there from Europe thought they looked like the biblical Joshua raising his hands. And so hence you got the name Joshua tree.
Yes. Okay. So that's what we did during the day. We went back to the hotel. We relaxed. We did some research. They had a swimming pool, but we were exhausted. We didn't even go swimming. So we took a break, went to dinner at a great place, John's Diner. If you're out there, I highly recommend looking it up. I tried to write something on planning, but they didn't come up. So I'm just going to give them a shout out here. They were great. And then at night, golden hour is a huge thing in the desert. I didn't really know about that. So let's take a look. So Rob, what do we do at night?
Okay, so the big thing being in the desert is you want to be active in the early morning and just at sunset. So sunrises and sunsets are absolutely spectacular because you can see for miles around 360 degrees. So here we are at Joshua Tree. You can see a Joshua tree right there in front of us. And you can see the sun setting over the mountains in the background.
And then
same here. You want clouds, believe it or not. When you see clouds, the locals will tell you, oh, if we have clouds, it's even more spectacular for the sunrises and sunset. This is a sunset because there were some clouds. You'll see it captures a lot of the glow.
Yeah. And this is another picture. I just want to say you meet the nicest people in the national parks. These were like young men. They looked like they were in college. And the one kid jumped out of the car and he was like, hey, you don't see this every day. Do you want me to take a family picture? I mean, how nice is that? Just like some 20-year-old kid. And he did a spectacular job. So again, that is in the running for possibly the best Christmas card shot. So we tend to not spend a whole week. We'll get into maybe doing some other of these, talking about some of our favorite national parks. We tend to spend a few days in a national park getting kind of an idea of it to see if we want to go back. So we stayed here for 2 nights and, we spent a couple of days in the park. We were in and we were out, and then we drove. And where did we go next, Rob?
Next, we still stayed with the desert theme, except we drove probably about 5-hour drive or so, 4 or 5 hour drive to Death Valley National Park.
Okay, what are some tips? Because Rob is the best when we go on vacation. He is like always prepared. He was an Eagle Scout. So what do people need to know about driving here?
Okay, so the big thing is there is not a lot of stuff between the parks. And so that is something to be aware of. So again, fill up with gas, have some water, have some snacks along, that you have with you in the car. Be prepared for that. You're going to be on the road for a while with not a lot of human beings between you and the park. Yeah.
So there was a junction and a couple of highways, and we stopped there for gas. And I'll put this in a blog post. And then I think it was Baker, if I remember the name of the town. That is the last place really to stop and get gas. To call it a town is kind of a misnomer. It's more of like a strip of like gas stations. We stopped there. We filled up again, went to the bathroom again, because there are no bathrooms like the last, 2 hours or so. Now, if you had to, you could stop on the side of the road, but literally there's nothing. So just kind of keep that in mind. So then we arrived, had some nice people take our photo. And this was probably around like 11, maybe noon. We did get on the road very early just because you do need to be careful and worried about your car overheating. Also, keep in mind, this was in the spring, and so it wasn't as hot as it gets in the summer. What kind of temperatures do they have here?
Yeah, so the temperature, actually, believe it or not, it is the highest temperature ever recorded was in Death Valley in the world at 134 degrees. So that usually would occur more in middle summer, but it is absolutely no joke and something to be aware of in the middle of the day. It gets extremely hot. Now, for us, it got up to about 98 or 100 degrees when we were there, and this is in the springtime. Summertime gets much hotter. So it is definitely a land of extreme temperatures. Yeah.
For those of you who are my listeners from abroad, 37 Celsius is about 100 degrees. And if you are looking at the 130, I think that's 55 Celsius. So it gets really, really hot. Yeah, that is 55. So you really need to think about it. And so in the summer, in the heat of the summer, we were there in the spring, at the end of March, beginning of April. In the summer, you can only be out for about 10 minutes. So we really did only go out. It was really hot. We went out at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day. And in the middle of the day, we stayed at our hotel, which we'll talk about that in a minute. We did stay inside of the national park because distances are vast. How big is Death Valley, Rob?
So in contrast to Joshua Tree, which you can drive through in an hour or two, this national park, Death Valley, is bigger than the entire state of Rhode Island. It's gigantic. So you can drive for hours and you're still in the park. I mean, you haven't exited it. So it is gigantic. It is a land of extremes. So when you look at Joshua Tree, it's much more accessible, artistic feeling. You're up in higher elevations. You're really close to the roads. So it's very much more accessible. When you're in Death Valley, this is a land of extremes. It's gigantic. It looks like you're on the moon in some places.
Yeah.
And it is definitely a land that is unforgettable to be able to see, but it is vast. So it is definitely a gigantic place that you're in.
Yeah. So here is the first stop that we made. I think it's called like Zabriskie or Zabriskie Point. I can't remember exactly. They have a gigantic parking lot, a paved trail. It's pretty steep, but it gets up to this just spectacular view of the top. And this is just a small shot. I mean, it's 365. It's like all the way around. It is just absolutely spectacular. You can see not a cloud in the sky. So yes, you do need your hat. So the first day we just settled into our hotel. I would say stop at a grocery store. I would have even bought a cooler for this part of the trip and taken a lot more food. Food is extremely expensive in the park for what you are getting because you, again, are in the middle of nowhere. Our hotel had a refrigerator, small one, and a microwave. And so I would have brought more food so we didn't have to buy food at the hotel because the food was good, but expensive and very basic. So we just did that the first day. And then this was like, I think our favorite part of the trip, I know I'm speaking for you, Rob, were the evenings. The evenings were absolutely amazing. So our first evening we went to, Rob, tell us about this.
Okay, so this is called Badwater Basin. It is the lowest place in North America. It is 282 feet below sea level. So when you're here, you are below sea level. it is covered in salt. So what you see in the background there is absolutely salt. So it goes on for a long, long ways that you see a bunch of salt there. So that whiteness you see on the ground is salt. So that's what you see for miles and miles around.
Yeah, it's absolutely spectacular. And once again, as Rob said before, you want a lot of clouds. And so we got to Badwater Basin, I'd say about 6 o'clock-ish. You are in the shade at that point, which is great. And we hiked and hiked and hiked out into the middle of this dry basin. Now, right before we had gotten there, in the next picture, you'll see it, they had had significant rainfall this year. So again, this is always where when you go to a national park, you have to talk to a ranger, because one of the places that we wanted to go, which was a waterfall, you could actually not get there this year because the whole road had washed out. And so they did have water, which is unusual because this is the driest place in the on the continent, or in the US, Rob? I can't remember.
It is the driest place in North America.
Okay, it's on the continent. Yeah.
It's the lowest, driest, and hottest place in North America. So it is, when we say extremes, that is three things that is the most extreme.
And I just want to say too, I would not recommend going here in the summer. This is probably a fall, winter, spring trip. So here's another picture. We stayed for sunset and golden hour. So pretty. I mean, just look at those colors. And you can see in the background on this picture on the right, I don't know if you can see my cursor, you can see little puddles that were still on the basin itself. We absolutely loved Badwater Basin. Some of the most beautiful sunsets I have ever seen. And then you drive back, and I will say it is dark when you drive back to your hotel. So keep that in mind. I wouldn't stay too terribly late if you're not used to driving on those roads, but that's just me. So the next morning we got up really early because we knew it was going to be very hot. And Rob, where did we go on day 2?
Oh, we went to the dunes. So here you see the sand dunes. And definitely I'm glad we got there early because we got there when it was cool. Because once the sun's down, it gets cool in the desert. But once that sun is up, it starts heating up fast. And so just lots of fun just running up and down these gigantic sand dunes.
Yeah, they were amazing. And for any of you who like Star Wars, some of the, I call it the first. I know people give me like, grief for that. Like the original Star Wars, I know it's not number 1 in the series anymore, but like, what's it called, Rob? I can't remember the name of it for real. Like it
looks like Tatooine from Star Wars.
Thank you. So some of the scenes were shot here. All right. So again, we didn't really do anything middle of the day. We actually did go swimming. But we went at like 10:30, 11 in the morning, and it got so hot by noon that we were like, we're out of here. So we went back to the room and just relaxed for a little bit. And then at night, again, golden hour is so cool here. We went to this slot canyon that just keeps going on and on and on and on. It was really hot here at this point because the walls of the canyon and the floor of the canyon get really hot. But then you can see in this first picture on the left, just some of the sun starting to set. And then the picture on the right, I mean, just look at those colors. And if I remember correctly, I think it was called Golden Canyon or something like this, aptly named. Can't believe I'm going to say this. What did we do night 2, Rob? We went back to what?
Once again, the unstructured thing. We ended up going back for the second night there to the exact same spot that we were there for the first night. We went back to Badwater Basin because we loved it so much. Again, had a lot of discussion. Should we go someplace else? But this was such a surreal place. Nothing else like it. that we said, let's do it again. And it was unanimous to go back.
Yes. And we went back and we loved it. The second night, we spent a lot more time sort of like, instead of looking up, looking at our feet and looking at the actual salt and what that looked like. And I just had to show this picture on the right. This, I couldn't make this happen twice. This actually looks like a heart in the second picture. We did not do that. It just happened to look that way. And so we really explored, went for a beautiful hike again. And again, you were just walking on the flat ground. It sounded so beautiful. It was so quiet and still and peaceful. And yes, there were lots of other people around, but you could just really sort of be in your own little bubble there. Like it was great. It was magical. I just can't say enough great things about it. But then we were leaving, we're on our way home. And this was like, talk about just unstructured and unplanned, but we saw this. And I have to say, I was nervous because we were like, what is that? And Rob, what did we see?
So after sunset, everything gets pretty much pitch black here at Badwater Basin. There's no street lights. There's no house lights because there's no people. And so you're driving on a very small 2-lane road where it's really dark. And then all of a sudden we see this out of the sky where the sky lights up. And we're debating, is it a meteor? But then we saw that it's changing shape and changing direction. And then we came to the conclusion, after discussing it, it is probably a rocket launch from Vandenberg Space Force Base in Southern California. We did get back to the hotel where we could get Wi-Fi, and it did confirm that that right there is a SpaceX rocket that was launching off Starlink satellites as the payload into space. So out of the darkness, we saw this burst of light, and it was indeed a SpaceX rocket launch that we saw.
Yeah, so it was very, very cool. And then I did just want to say on the right, you can see we took this picture with our phone. It's not the best, but just to show you the stars. It is really unbelievable. At the national parks as well, they have a lot of ranger programs. And we did not get, just because of the way our trip fell, we did not get to see a ranger program, but they do have star programs at night and, just a lot of options. But that is kind of our trip in a nutshell. I think my big thing from going to national parks is always, it just is such a great way to unplug, to relax, to get into nature, get out of your routine, and just to kind of be together, problem solving, having fun, relaxing, talking, not talking. Like it's just so out of your normal routine that there's something just really special and magical about it. So Rob, what are your thoughts on national park trips?
It is definitely a must-do in my opinion. I wouldn't say it's better than any other vacations, but it is different doing this unstructured nature where you don't know exactly what you're going to do next. There's no person or company that's planned out what's the next ride you should go on. It's not that. You're figuring out as you go along. You said problem solving. And for me, seeing these two different parks, which are two parks that were in the desert, Joshua Tree, which to me was very almost like surreal landscapes, spectacular sunsets, almost artistic and accessible and easy for Joshua Tree. And then you had Death Valley, the land of extremes. And that was a different game you had to play there, the sheer vastness. You felt very small in comparison. And seeing the SpaceX rocket launch from a place that you consider one of the best places to see stars at night was something unplanned. We could never have planned that out better. I mean, it was unexpected. And boy, did we have great discussion on what it could be on the way back until we were able to confirm it. So I really enjoyed the contrast of the two parks, even though they're both desert parks. both very different feel to them. And it was nice to talk about the differences. And I agree that it's just great to unplug. Some people will complain sometimes you don't have internet access or cell phone access, but quite frankly, that's a feature, not a bug.
Yeah,
you go there
100%.
for that. And then not everything goes correctly, of course. Well, then you problem solve. And again, that's a feature, not a bug of the whole national park vacation. Things won't be perfect, but you'll figure it out.
Yeah. Yeah, that is a great point because I did have a little bit of a mom planning fail with the tram that goes up on our day when we were driving to Joshua Tree, but actually it worked out because we got to see some other things in town. And then again, I'm always amazed at how flexible it makes children when you're on a trip like this, because our daughter was like, that's okay. Sometimes things don't work out. And then moving on and we were finished. So I give this 2 thumbs up. I loved both of these parks. They were so extremely different than anywhere else that we have ever been. So I thought this was fun, Rob, talking about our national parks. I personally would like to make this a little series. So any of you out there listening or watching, if you want to know about a certain national park, let us know in the comments below. If we've been there, maybe we can do like a throwback episode, Rob, about some of the national parks that we've been to. Rob, what's your favorite national park?
Well, for me, it's an easy one. Yeah, it's either Yellowstone or Yosemite. I would go with Yosemite, but Glacier Bay is great. Volcano National Park in Hawaii is great. Boy, that's like trying to pick out a favorite one is a tough one. I would probably go with Yosemite. Just for me, I just love the land of giants that it is. I love it, but I love them all. So I could talk going on and on about all of them. And these two were really something special. I thought they would be very similar, but I was really shocked at the different feel in both of them. So you never know what you're going to get. When we got there, I have a totally different feel now that I've been there.
Yeah, 100% agree. It's just, I thought they were going to be very, very similar, and they were way more different than I ever expected. Death Valley really blew me away that it was as big as it is. I felt like we were driving and driving and driving, and then like you wouldn't see anyone. And it's like, how am I in this national park and I'm the only person on the road? And it's one of their busiest times of the year. Like, it's just, that's crazy to me. So, all right, everyone. I thought this was so much fun again. Rob, thanks for doing this. Thanks for, coming on this crazy spring break adventure with us. I had so much fun. And everyone, we will see you all again soon. Take care.